if we have steadiness over a period of time, right, then hopefully buyer confidence will increase. I think it's pretty likely that interest rates will keep going down. I'm just hoping they keep going down in a slow manner so that we don't have a spike of inflation or a depletion of inventory so fast that prices just go up more than is healthy.
Yeah.
Are you seeing some more skepticism overall with buyers, sellers with the current market than you have the last 6 months or so, or kind of status quo with how the last year or two have gone coming out of COVID?
There was a dramatic shift in price point between 2020 and 22. Some people hung in there. It's not just the cost of housing. Now it's the cost of everyday goods. On top of that, we can't just have poverty with a view. We have to be able to not feel pinched at every point.
Millennials are somewhat struggling. They're struggling to buy a house, they're struggling to afford a comfortable lifestyle, raising children, saving for retirement. When is the playing field going to get equal?
What is the advice that you think would be most important right now to say you need to get on top of this for 2026? Awesome, guys. Well, this is actually we got David Swain with Clear Sky Real Estate here, and Travis Kavanaugh with Stevens & Co. and Matthew Fitzgerald with Holistic Financial Planning. What's right? I love the name. And Chris, I was here with Visitor Mortgage, and this is actually so. I was laughing in the sense of I've widely kind of sequestered my podcast, which is busyness and things happening in the market. And so the last time we were in this room was with us. So this has kind of become like the podcast. This is the content coming out here, but we are excited to connect and just chat through what's going on in everyone's realm of expertise. You were talking about some real estate and some population things. So maybe David, you want to kick us off of what you see happen right now?
Well, I think that we're going through a pretty normal sales cycle since July. July was a little weird. There was a blip where people kind of put their shopping on hold. We had a pretty low, overall monthly sales number. And then we bounced back as if it never happened. Went into August, September, October, and probably even had a little bit of pent up buyer demand that's extending the season slightly, but overall, normal kind of thing. We peaked in inventory in July. We're slowly going down every week, which means, if people are putting their houses on the market this time of year, just as a seasonal trend that almost always happens. And there's always buyers left over out there snatching up the inventory that is out there. Even though we are sitting around 360 active listings, this time of year, that's not that much if you just can forget about the COVID years. And it's pretty typical really of this time of year. And so it's healthy in the sense that it's stable and typical of the time of year. And my opinion is that we're going to go into next year and we're going to start seeing some increased activity in the market and get out of this last 3 years of kind of a slower trend that we've had in the general real estate market.
Right, that just kind of a question. Are you seeing some more skepticism overall with buyers, sellers with the current market than you have the last 6 months or so, or just kind of status quo with how the last year and two have gone coming out of COVID?
Yeah, I think there's just too much uncertainty. And that's been our main reason, in my opinion, for other than interest rates, that we're still seeing kind of a slowish market. If we had the improvement of interest rates that we've had over the course of the year and didn't have the uncertainty, then I think we would have already seen the improvement in the activity. So yeah, I don't know if that helps answer that question in a general sense. Yeah. But right, if we have steadiness over a period of time, right, then hopefully buyer confidence will increase. And I think it's pretty likely that interest rates will keep going down. I'm just hoping they keep going down in a slow manner so that we don't have a spike of inflation or, a depletion of inventory so fast that prices just, go up more than is healthy.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah. I mean, and it's easy to kind of segue into that to where I mean, we have seen interest rates come down anywhere from, depending on what peak you're measuring this year. I mean, we had interest rates upwards of the like low sevens at certain points in time this year. And we've then seen numbers in like right now, 30-year conventional, primary residence fixed rate is somewhere around like the low sixes as we're sitting here today, in like middle to end of October. And so, 3/4 or 1% reduction in rate is substantial, right? I know the average sales price in Flagstaff is hovering in the mid 700s right now, whereas then we're seeing our average loan amount in Flagstaff. So again, there's what the price is, and then there's what people are financing. Average loan amount is actually closer to about 400,000 or 450. And based on just that reduction alone, it's already upwards of like $200 to $300 per month in savings. So I think that that's where we're already starting to see. That's what I'm curious to see. Kind of ask some more questions on that macro micro, right? And I've talked to a lot of clients on that because again, macro is like the bigger picture of like we see seasonality and hit the actually no micro Flagstaff. We see the seasonality of the market, right? Just like you said, the summer peaks, we see things slow down just with holidays and snow on the ground and less activity in general. But right now, I think we're starting to. I believe we might see some macro, some bigger picture of like inflation improvement, interest rate improvement, the Fed's cuts that could all lead to a bigger trend that actually makes it so it's not that slow a winter. I don't think pace rate market, but it'll be interesting because we are sitting at annual highs on mortgage applications, and activity is quite up high on lots of other metrics. So I'll be interested to see if we kind of see some of that sluggish activity that happened during summertime that we thought things were going to heat up and then didn't, if they just kind of hit more of a busier tail end of the year.
I'm curious, is there like a slowdown or an increase of population in Flagstaff that you've noticed, like a trend, especially like from a generational perspective, whether it's boomers, millennials? Like, have you looked into that much?
Well, I can't really speak to the generational factor. Um, I guess be a little bit more specific.
I guess overall, is like population increasing or decreasing in the Flagstaff, Northern Arizona market?
From research that I have done, is it's pretty dang steady for the last 5 years. I know, Chris has been in the game longer than I have um, with understanding the increase and how that's affected our industry. But in the last 5 years, overall Flagstaff has hovered right around 77,000, and it's hard to also calculate what people consider Flagstaff, because when people ask me how big Flagstaff is, I say it's like about 110,000, right? Because Flagstaff city limits doesn't fully include places like a lot of East Rural, Fort Blally, Belmont, Parks, Munns Park, some areas, even like Kachina Village would be outside of the city limits, right? So there's more Flagstaff that's not in the city. But if you look at data, they're calling the greater Flagstaff area pretty much all of Coconino County. And we know Coconino County is huge. So that's sat very close to around 145,000 people for the last 5 years. So that's pretty steady as well. I think that the differences come into play with the affordability factor chasing out certain parts of the population.
That's kind of what I was alluding to. Is are millennials struggling to like get into the real estate market, or what are you noticing there?
Yeah, I think that's fair. The bottom end is pushed up more than little, and so and you always are noticing all the construction around town, so you feel like the growth is there. What I really think is happening is that a lot of the home buyers and a larger proportion being cash, in the recent years, are second homeowners, investments, and multifamily, developers. One factor that influences if you have a bunch of multifamily going up, right? All these people have held long-term rentals to support the student population and families that can't afford to buy yet. Um, then there's a surplus of rentals, and the rental market value has actually come down in the last year and a half or so.
And there's some weird things happening though, and that's where it's hard to get a really grip on all the multiple variables just in our small market to that extent though as well. Is that's over quite a bit of commentary. We talked about, I don't know if we spoke about this last time, but how simple data or like, a little chat GPT on this doesn't paint the whole picture, right? So if if you have a client coming in from out of state and like median area, area local median price of Flagstaff at like, I think I heard it was like 780-ish. Does that sound right? 780-ish right now.
Yeah, right now.
I think Crystal was the one that told me that earlier today. Well, like 780-ish. And it's like, hey, that doesn't paint the whole picture though, because we've seen and you tell me as well, because you see more of this than I do. But what I'm hearing as well is that the where we used to have the bottom quartile of the market, like 500 and under on a purchase price, used to be just hot, hot, hot. That there's this ironic nuance happening right now that's slowing down, and a lot of folks, our professors I've spoken to, are like, yeah, it's probably the affordability point, right? That rates are so high that those folks getting into that entry level home is slowed down. So even though that townhome sitting around at 450,000, or 425,000 or something over in Christmas Tree is a pretty attractive price, it's been on the market for months, right? That kind of thing is weird.
That is weird. Yeah, it seems isolated. Some homes in that price point, you're still getting your multiple offers that you anticipate. But yeah, you take an area like Christmas Tree, which is technically like an 8-mile drive to downtown, and those townhomes that are really nice and a great bang for your buck, yeah, they're just sitting a lot longer.
Whereas going up though is that that mathematically to create an average, if more homes are selling that are in that kind of more move up tier, that 700 to 800, that's going to skew on the numbers. Or if we have more homes selling, like the one home that sells, that I think we've sold more like multi-million-dollar homes this year than in like historically or something very close to it. So it's like that one house that sells at $5 million.
Oh yeah,
There's a lot.
saw that $7 million sale this year. I mean, yeah, it used to kind of feel like 4 million was the cap, and now you're seeing $6 and $7 million listings, and they actually move, and you're going, wait, certain sectors of the market feel slow, and then that just gets snatched on day one. So that is skewing certain things, I think.
Yeah, it speaks to kind of the demographic of our market. But again, mathematically, that's why we want to look at a median versus an average, but still enough homes lean towards that over 800 price point that's going to skew your median. Right. And I just think that that's where, I don't know, I think to speak to your point is, I think the demographics of Flagstaff are slowly shifting and then the cost of the market, but I wouldn't say, Matt was asking you more than you, but Dad, I wouldn't say that there's like this clear, distinct shift. I think this is something that just happens over decades.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but there was a dramatic shift in price point, between 2020 and 22, and some people hung in there, and now they're just like, yeah, I just can't do this anymore, right? It's not just the cost of housing. Now it's the cost of everyday goods on top of that. We can't just have poverty with view. We have to be able to like not feel pinched at every point financially.
Sure. So I wonder, from your standpoint, then Travis, dealing with a lot of business owners. So I'd probably say it's pretty safe to assume your client, well, probably both of you deal with a clientele that's maybe more on that middle to upper class, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean,
How's the impact you're seeing?
I've got quite a few younger millennial clients just kind of starting out and just trying to save for retirement and get there, right? But the majority of my practices, the boomer generation, if not older, more established businesses, things like that. So, it seems to be less effective to them, but, these kind of pushes and pulls that are happening throughout the economy are, affecting them a little bit less. So
Yeah.
it's good for them. But I'm also a millennial and my friends are millennials. So it's like, where do we find that balance? But yeah, I guess just saying anecdotally, like, millennials are, in my opinion, like somewhat struggling. They're struggling to buy a house, struggling to afford a comfortable lifestyle, raising children, saving for retirement. So it's like, when is it? I guess when is the playing field going to get equal? And would it ever? big, heavy questions. Sure, today. That's what Charlie. Yeah, you answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It's, I mean, there's a larger discussion that we could piggyback off of Matt's point there, or question. But I think to answer your question, there really is a, you know, are we seeing as many people, even in that, upper middle class, feeling comfortable enough to max out their IRA and to max out their 401k and to do these things that historically it was a no-brainer. The people that were in that range 25 years ago, um, it was, yeah, of course I am. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it every time because I didn't, but I think there is that little bit of a little bit of more of a pinch. Even in those upper, the little higher classes, I would say, not and yeah, I don't know, I don't know what the, it's all different, fields, different, employees, business owners. It doesn't, I think we're kind of seeing that across the board, but it depends. I think that there's some people are facing it head on, and others are, and maybe I think COVID allowed, if you got in there before, you're a step ahead, especially if you're a homeowner. And versus these people that are, they got on the boat in 2024 to try to buy a house, and they're going to be in a little bit of a different position than those that got on in 2020, 2019. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Kind of the more upper middle income market, right? Like those people are still kind of facing a lot of these challenges, right? Like they go to the grocery store and a pound of butter in a house, $8, right? So it's like, maybe they're on a fixed income, maybe they're retired, and they come to me and they're like, how do we adjust for this? And it's like, oh, fortunately through good investing strategies, like it's going to keep up with the cost of living, but it's just different for the haves versus the have-nots, right? And so definitely have a lot of empathy, but more of a reason, where it's possible, just to try to get ahead of that game, because let it go for too long and it's going to be out of control.
yeah, nobody likes paying taxes, but I'd say over the last 2 years, I felt more people that you would normally think coming up with 10 grand's no problem, where they have it, but it hurts even more now than maybe it did 2 or 3 years ago. Um, yeah.
And it's an interesting conversation, and especially we've been, I mean, I've been very active with the local school district, and it's very interesting when they start talking about needs. It's like, okay, there's the initial first-time teacher that's trying to just find unaffordable rental, to then all the way fast forward to like the administrator that's trying to figure out retirement. So it's kind of interesting that we try to be as sensitive to these topics as you can, but I think it is fascinating that, like, again, totally empathetic to the folks that just think, hey, I need to, find a rental that I can afford. But then also knowing, like, I've had, friends that are physicians and gone through decade and a half of medical school and training. And it's like, this is what they thought life was going to be. And then based on Flagstaff and the current economy, it is a shift. And that is something that does impact the entire economy. I mean, we have, case in point, I mean, we were in a similar boat when we were having our fourth child, and then we're being told, like, there's this whole office, the OBG office is like no longer, right? And that's not just because like other places are so cool. It plays into them finding their opportunity here. So like having professionals that want to stay here, that are at all levels of the professional and income spectrum. It's interesting. We're definitely in some growing pain situations, both in a Flagstaff and economic perspective. But I tend to find though that I don't know. I like to get into or to exit the victim mentality as fast as we can, though, because I'm kind of more like, hey, strap the boots on. What are you gonna do? And yes, there are all sorts of things, and not to lack empathy, of like, we need to put a hand out and reach out to members of our community and try and make, with down payment assistance programs and education and tools and resources. And had my parents met you years ago, I'd have an like amazing inheritance. That I'm saying is just like, people need to be aware of these tools and resources. I think that's a massive underplayed thing, not to just like pat ourselves on the back here, but like call a freaking expert, start figuring out these problems, right? And find some solutions for it, right? Just renting or renewing the lease and saying, we'll figure out next year, is not going to help you out. Like, call David and start, like, pull the Band-Aid off. And that's why I love it when you maybe are the same way. You connect with the client. You're like, all right, so guess what? probably not, might not be this neighborhood, might have to drive a little bit more, or, we got to have some concessions and some trade-offs, but you're in a 30-year fixed mortgage, and now that house, fast forward a couple years, worth more than you paid for it. And it's like, so I guess maybe on that vein, um, if we just did kind of a quick round robin, what would you be heading out of 2025 and 2026, because this is kind of entering the third quarter, or sorry, fourth quarter already. What would you say to, again, there's different clients that you could be speaking to, but who are the clients, and what is the advice that you think would be most important right now to say, you need to get on top of this for 2026? I don't know. What do you guys have, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I definitely do. So when I'm engaging with a new potential client or prospect, or even an existing client, talking about their goals, I really like to break it into 3 different buckets. Just it's a much easier concept. Instead of saying, should I invest in this or should I buy that? It's like, all right, let's talk about your goals. So breaking these into bite-sized chunks, right? So we use the 3-bucket methodology. So bucket 1, short-term goals, things that are going to happen in the next 12 months, right? So this might be an emergency fund, it might be the car that you're about to buy, maybe it's 1 year's worth of retirement expenses, home repair, stuff like that, but it's just safe, ready to go, accessible, and liquid. The second bucket being really a 1 to 5 year period. So like, plans to buy a house, sending kids to college, things like that. Having that in safe, but still, structured investments, maybe like treasuries, bank structured notes, CDs, things like that. It'll be there when you need it. But then really prioritizing, after those 2 buckets are filled, kind of the cascading effect of really focusing on the long term, being really disciplined, even though you might not be able to max out your 401k every year. If you're doing something, it's better than nothing, right? But
As early as you can be doing it.
yep, exactly. But yeah, just really trying to identify those goals, fit them into the buckets, assign $1 to them, right? Give every dollar a job, and then really just being disciplined. That's my advice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's to double down on that too, just and that's that I add to that to say, where are you on the track and where do you start to get there? Because so many folks, and we've talked about it before, is like it used to be so affordable because of historical affordable levels, billions and billions of dollars of federal government subsidy on interest rate. And you can also say that we were maybe a little bit still undiscovered, right, as Flagstaff, right? We continue to get bigger and bigger on the map. We were talking about trying to find some second home statistics and things at Flagstaff. I know, certain golf communities in town do monitor that and are, so more like gated community, especially, that's a high second home property is like 30 to 35% owner occupied, right? The homes that people are dropping $2 to $7 million on, right?
Which I think has gone up from what it used to be 10 or 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. As far as occupancy or second?
Yeah, occupancy. Oh, both though. I mean, the total number of homes that are in those communities has expanded, but also the amount that are occupied year round has definitely increased.
So yeah, and I just would say then, again, getting on that path and starting to realize that those little actions do add up. A little bit here, a little bit there, and all of a sudden you realize, like, all right, because we do live in that consumer. I mean, I talk to my kids all the time, like it's consumer economy, right? And it's like, okay, you didn't go as bougie as you had to on the fall break vacation. You cut a little corners with, the grocery budget as best you can, but like, okay, every couple $1,000 you can be putting away like we'll get into a home, and maybe we didn't do it. And that's right. I used to end my note because you guys know I'm all long-winded, but yeah, it's kind of like even elephant one bite at a time, and then engage the professionals, even if it's 24 months before this is going to happen. I sat down with a couple that want to move up. We helped them buy a home in Munns Park, and they're like, we want to be in Flagstaff. We know this is going to be a big shift. It's like, okay, let's put a 24-month plan together. And you are likely to be able to change things with your savings, your income, your credit in 24 months versus if you come in my lease is going to expire in 60 days, doesn't quite work out. And then you're like, all right, shoot, it didn't work out. We were just re-signed the lease.
Yeah,
You know,
I think it sounds like discipline and putting a plan in action. And that's what I keep seeing with some of my clients that are having that challenge of jumping. It's like, oh, well, I can't afford Flagstaff. I got to move. No, 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 no. Your income's there, right? You've got debt. you've got spending habits that don't equal, you know, owning a home in the next year. You um you've you've been surrounded by, you know, thousands of ads a day, right? To spend money on something, right? And you and your peers are buying into that. Um and that's okay. It's just how do you shift your perspective on or priorities to put that plan in action because then you got it.
Yeah, I think there's so much. Yeah, I see lots of opportunity, right? As I'm sure that you're seeing as the economy shifts, you're seeing buy signs on certain investments. I'm seeing that I honestly believe, put me down for it, the next 6 months of real estate is going to be the most opportunistic out of the next 6 years. I holistically believe that, right?
No pun intended. List.
I think you're right. And yeah, just because we're seeing this shift and it's like that whole cycle, what is it that what is it? Bear or bull markets are the cycle, right? Are born on skepticism,
Right.
fueled by optimism, peak with euphoria and die on yeah, so that whole cycle, right? I'm probably slaughtering it. But right now people are scared. They're still scared. There's still a lot happening economically. Rates really haven't improved much. And finally, these these sellers have kind of been beat and beat and beat and beat. And so I'm seeing more happening on that negotiation table than I've seen in 7 years. But that's not going to be forever, like you mentioned before. It's like, okay, the market starts to shift, things start to solidify. Depending on what inventory does, those prices will either stabilize, slowly go up, but down further. Most of the market will, because this is how we work as in cut. When stock prices go up, it's like that's a great buy. Up say no, 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 no. It was a great buy when it was down, right? And just likewise, you'll see a bunch of people call you to buy homes because all of a sudden prices go up again.
Oh yeah.
So better be earlier than too late, right?
Yeah, but then that's what I say. I think it's now. It's like where it's still a little skeptical. That's when you make the move because when all of a sudden it's a sure thing. Because I'm sure that they're not going down anymore because they are going up again. If you wait for that, it's just okay. Where do you get in that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have it? Hey, you take.
You just hoping.
I'd echo a lot what's been said. There's I would deal with a lot of young business owners, even some seasoned business owners that, I think just what's your direction? What's your map? You had a roadmap. A lot of people have good businesses. They're likable people. They're in service business. Somebody with a great product in product business, right? I think just finding that, what's the plan? Do you have a plan? Do you have the funds to make it happen? Do you not have the funds? What can we do? This again, same thing that you guys have been talking about. Um, it's the one thing that all of us have, and David started it off with it, is the uncertainty of everything. But that doesn't that I think that the people that are letting that slow them down are going to be left in the dust. And it's are we being proactive? Are we planning, looking forward? And the people that I think are having success now and are setting themselves up for success in the next 5 years, 10 years too. So yeah, don't hesitate to start making those.
Don't live in fear. Don't not make a good lifestyle decision for you and your family now. Jump on it and then take it as it comes. If things shift, then we're all in it.
Yeah, and I think to add to that too, I think that you guys have seen the Napoleon Dynamite movie, right?
What movies?
The Uncle Rico effect. Like living in the past. And we started kind of like, oh my gosh, compared to, but I think the key to all that too is just saying, okay, where will you be in 5 to 10 years from now? And you can't look back and say what it could have, should have, right? And especially even with folks that maybe did great and they bought a home at that point in time, have that 2.5%, 3% interest rate. And it's like, okay, well, but what do you do forward? Do you still stay in that smaller home that's not in the school district you want to be, and now you had a couple of kids, or do you, make the decision and shift things? And sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's no. But at least, consult with the experts, understand where do you want to be and how do you get there, and what are the real costs of that. And I think, yeah, I think I think a lot of us just through everything that's happened in the last 5 years, like, just kinda or need to reset that compass, look forward, and just say, "Okay, there's gonna be opportunity. How do we make the most of it?"
Piggybacking on that, it really makes me think, I've always had this opinion that buyers generally start talking to their realtor, um, you know, a couple months before they're ready, maybe 6 months at the most before they're ready. They're never having the conversation a year, 2, 3 years out. And they could have achieved their goals sooner or been in a better place when it is the right time. And I think it's fair to say any of us are willing to sit down and have a consultation to help put that plan together for whatever someone's goals are. And we invite um, that to happen because we want to be your trusted advisor, even if you're not, you know, spending money or technical like client per se for 2 or 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think, big conclusion of that too is, especially since there's so much, the advent of the internet puts so much information in our hands, but I think it's paralyzing and confusing, and people are, I've had actually, especially recently, a couple of conversations where people are like, "Hey, I'm getting all I had a dude. I sent to you." I was like, "I love this guy to death. He's a smart dude." And called me up. It was like, "Hey, what do you think about this investing scheme?" And I was like, quick Google, I was like, really just trying to sell you a course. And really, I show I did was bad. And it's just like, you need to talk to your professional. Like, there's so much out there, and there is no shortcut on a get rich quick or let's hack the system or, there really isn't. But it's a matter of talking to local professionals that are going to level with you, understand your goals, care about you. Right. And that's what not to like glaze, or what's the new word? Glazing. Do you know what glazing means? It's like the don't like you when you glaze, you talk about people in a nice way. Like I'm gonna glaze you all for a little bit, just making how good you all are, because I know you care about people. We're gonna run into you in the grocery store, so we're gonna want to see you at our client appreciation events. So run into you at the restaurant and pay your bill, and like that's the kind of people we are. To where don't go to ChatGPT and say, okay, happen. Like great resource to start, but talk to a professional as soon as you can, because that's gonna put you on the right path versus just thinking like, all right, YouTube told me to, you know do this business on my taxes. Like instructions, there's crazy stuff that you see probably on that. Just cringy. Yeah. All right. Any other takeaways, guys?
At this point, it was good. Yeah, I mean, lot to a lot to be excited about amongst the nerves that are underlying that. Yeah, it's I echo it all. That it's do it early. Talk to your trusted people earlier than later. So yeah.
Travis, how can people contact you?
You can call our office 928-774-7181. That's
Steve is in company.
Steve is in company. We're downtown. They're just outside downtown. Yeah, give us a call. We'll have a chat. See if we can help you out, and I'll be honest if we can't, and I'll be more honest if we can't. So
Yeah. Matt, how can people contact you?
Folks can go to holisticplanning.com/Sedona. And I've got a little link on there. People can schedule like a 30-minute phone call. Happy to do that. Complimentary to anybody who just might need some guidance. But yeah, otherwise, my office is down in Sedona, but I live up here in Flagstaff. So I'm happy to meet people wherever it's comfortable for them.
Yeah. Certified financial planner in the house. Chris, we all probably know how to reach you, but why don't you tell everybody?
Trevor was contacted. Yes, besides below as well. Go ahead and yeah, any specific way for you, David?
Yeah, David at clearskyprofessionals.com.
Awesome. Well, this is awesome, guys. So yeah, hope everyone enjoyed the content today, and we'll look forward to getting together again soon.
Awesome. See you guys. Thanks, guys.